This is the education report.
From VOA Learning English, this is the education report.
Students at St. Louis University have launched weather
Students at the St. Louis University have launched weather balloons into the sky
balloons into the sky above the city of St. Louis, Missouri.
above the city of St. Louis, Missouri.
The United States Space Agency, NASA, is paying for the project to measure ozone gas. The United States Space Agency, NASA,
The United States Space Agency, NASA, is paying for the project to measure ozone gas.
is paying for the project to measure ozone gas. It is part of a study to learn more about air pollution and
It is part of a study to learn more about air pollution and our climate.
our climate. The students are getting the opportunity to carry out a real scientific experiment.
Students are getting the opportunity to carry out a real scientific experiment.
They used a laptop computer and a radio receiver
They used a laptop computer and a radio receiver outside
the St. Louis Science Center to communicate with data gathering
the St. Louis Science Center to communicate with data gathering devices on the balloon.
devices on the balloon. Before launch, the students tested all the instruments and attached them to
Before launch, the students tested all the instruments and attached them to the weather balloon filled with
helium. Gary Morris is a professor at Valparaiso University in
Gary Morris is a professor at Valparaiso University in Indiana.
He is the lead trainer for the nationwide study.
He is the lead trainer for the nationwide study.
The professor says NASA wants more information on
The professor says NASA wants more information on ozone
because of how it affects our atmosphere.
because of how it affects our atmosphere.
High above the Earth, in the stratosphere,
High above the Earth, in the stratosphere,
the ozone layer keeps harmful ultraviolet radiation
the ozone layer keeps harmful ultraviolet radiation from reaching the ground.
But in the lower atmosphere, emissions from cars
But in the lower atmosphere,
and other sources like
emissions from cars and other sources like
petrochemical plants form ozone pollution.
Petrochemical plants from ozone pollution and
smog. They cause unhealthy air conditions that affect breathing.
They cause unhealthy air conditions that affect breathing.
Jack Fishman leads the ozone study at St. Louis University.
Jack Fishman leads the ozone study at St. Louis University.
He says new requirements that decrease decrease pollution have lowered ozone levels.
He says new requirements that decrease pollution have lowered ozone levels in American cities.
But he notes that pollution in remote areas continues to increase.
But he knows that pollution in remote areas continues to increase.
He blames industrial activity in East Asia for that pollution.
He blames industrial
Jack Fishman
activity
says
in East Asia for that pollution.
polluted air is being blown across the Pacific.
Jack Fishman says polluted air is being blown across the Pacific
by air currents in the upper atmosphere.
By air currents in the upper atmosphere.
He says ozone pollution has slowed the growth of farm crops.
He says ozone pollution has slowed the growth of farm crops
and forests.
For VOA Learning English.